Devil May Cry 5 is my favorite video game ever, tied with another game I'll get to another time. This game does pretty much everything I could ever hope for out of a video game. Beautiful graphics, rewarding and satisfying gameplay, a perfect soundtrack, and a story so great that even a devil may cry. However, it's not like this game is perfect, and I definitely have a few complaints with this game. And today I want to tackle all of these points as I explain to you why Devil May Cry 5 is my favorite game ever. Now, DMC5 was a game that fans have been waiting years to play. DMC4 released in 2008 and DMC5 released in 2019. To put that into perspective, you could have gone through the entirety of elementary school, middle school, and be nearly done with high school in that time. However, I didn't need to wait that long. Like I said in my DMC1 video, I got into Devil May Cry in mid-2024, right as 8th grade was wrapping up. So I spent that summer watching as many DMC videos as I could find, and then spent that winter break playing through DMC5. Since then, I've played DMC5 at least 10 times and I've always had a blast with the game. I don't have any exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure this is one of my most played games. So I think I should get into the game proper. A brand new demon king by the name of Urizen ripped off Nero's arm and took Yamato with it. He created a tree called the Qliphotht, and has become so powerful that he defeated Dante, Trish, Lady, and Nero. A month later, it's up to Nero and the new guy V to take down Urizen. That's the setup for this game, so I think it's a good place to start. For first impressions, I think this game is the best in the entire series. Yeah, it's your usual tutorial, but it also sets up Urizen as a threatening and frightening antagonist. As soon as you step into the boss room, you see Dante, Lady, and Trish lying there defeated on the floor. These three have always been absolute powerhouses and nothing has been a challenge for them, so you know that this guy is serious. Then you get thrust into a boss fight that's basically unwinnable. Once your HP reaches 0, the game begins proper. But once you reach Mission 1, the game comes out flying with the opening cutscene, with Nero kicking the crap out of everything on his way, all with Devil Trigger in the background. It's absolutely fantastic and one of the best DMC cutscenes ever. DMC5 is the first DMC game to run on the RE engine, which doesn't stand for Resident Evil engine, it stands for Reach for the Moon engine, so that's something. But that means that this game is absolutely beautiful. The lighting is incredible, particles are everywhere, and the difference between light and dark is mesmerizing. I think the only blunder is that Trish just never looks right. Everybody else is absolutely beautiful, but they just messed up something with her specifically. Either her nose is off a bit, or her hair looks like crap, although it's probably both. And the game was absolutely cutting edge when it released, and it still holds up great today. From what I heard, the game was always able to hold a solid 60 FPS on the PS4, and that's always nice, and it's pretty necessary when you have combat this intense. In DMC4, Nero was a pretty simple character. You start as him to understand the ropes of the DMC combat before you're given Dante's massive moveset. In DMC5, Nero is exactly the same. This was the first DMC game for a lot of people, so starting out as such a simple character was important. But since Urizen stole Nero's arm at the beginning of the game, he doesn't have the Devil Bringer anymore. This was pretty essential to Nero's kit in DMC4, and it's a big shakeup, but DMC5 compensates in other ways. For one, Nero's combat is nearly identical to how it was in DMC4. Your attacks are very aggressive, with enemies flying all over the place, and you need to close the gap to keep the pressure up. To close the gap, you can use moves like Streak or Payline. The Exceed function returns, allowing you to charge up your melee strikes. Just like DMC4, you can instantly gain an Exceed gauge if you hit the button with the right timing. And to replace the Devil Bringer, you have the brand new Devil Breakers. Nero's got a new friend in this game, Nico. She's a mechanic and she's come up with a bunch of robotic arms for him to use. You unlock them throughout the game at a pretty standard pace, but you start with some simple ones. Mainly, Overture, as it pushes enemies away by shocking them with electricity. Gerbera basically gives you a triple jump, and Punchline gives you a hoverboard to ride on. You can also charge up these arms for bigger attacks, like a massive laser from Gerbera or an uppercut from Punchline. These attacks will destroy the Devil Breaker though, so you gotta be careful and be on the lookout for more Devil Breakers throughout the level. Devil Breakers are really fun because on a first playthrough, you don't know which ones you'll find where, and you need to make the most out of them before you use your charge shot and move on to the next one. And you have to be careful because if you get hit when using an arm, it'll immediately break. And you need to choose exactly when you'll drop an arm, so it's one big risk versus reward game and I absolutely love it. My favorite Devil Breaker is easily the Mega Buster. You all should already know this, but given the fact that it's the franchise I have the most videos on, but I absolutely love Mega Man. So it's pretty cool seeing Nero shooting the Mega Man shots, beaming down to the stage, doing the jump, doing the slide, even bursting into spheres of energy when he dies. I was kinda hoping that Dante would even get the Z-Saber, but oh well. So everything I talked about thus far does wonders to improve and expand upon Nero's gameplay, and easily makes it one of the best playstyles in this series. But you can't go this long on Nero's combat without mentioning the music. Nero's new battle theme in this game is Devil Trigger. It's featured a lot in this game and it's pre-release, and it's probably one of the best video game songs ever. This song is just incredible in every way. Casey Edwards is an incredible composer, and this song just couldn't be complete without the performance of Ali Edwards. However, the music in this game is better than all the previous games simply because of how dynamic it is, literally. When the fight starts, the music starts out slow, and as you perform better you start hearing verses of the song. And when you finally get an S rank, the song pulls out all the stops and drops the beat as the chorus kicks in, and this makes even the music satisfying as part of the combat. V's theme, Crimson Cloud, is also pretty great, and it's probably one of the most emo songs I've ever heard, and that's a compliment, keep in mind. Dante's battle theme, Subhuman, is also incredible, and it's probably my favorite battle theme out of these three, but it's a pretty close call between these three. There's also one other battle theme that's pretty great, but I'll have to get to that later. After you do a few missions as Nero, the game keeps up the action with V. V is a pretty unique character as he fits into more of a summoner type of playstyle. He's a human who can hardly fight, so he gets his demon familiars to do the bulk of the fighting. The ranged attacker, Griffin, and the melee fighter, Shadow, and the big bulky one, Nightmare. Interestingly, all of these are enemies that Dante defeated back in DMC1. Funny story though, in my DMC1 playthrough I'd fought Griffin or Nightmare and was wondering when Shadow would show up. I looked it up and he just doesn't appear in easy mode, so I never fought the guy. Anyway, V's controls are similar to Nero's, but it's the way you fight that's different. V's basically made of glass, so you need to keep yourself out of harm's way while your familiars do the fighting for you. Once an enemy has been knocked down, you teleport to the enemy and deal the finishing blow with your cane. You command Shadow with the melee button, and he has a good amount of combos. You command Griffin with the ranged attack button, and you spawn a Nightmare when you enter DT. All of these demons have their own health bars, so you need to keep an eye on them and V to make sure no fight ends on a loss. But if a familiar dies on you, it'll take a minute for them to come back into the fight. But you can speed this up by keeping V near them. V's playstyle probably took a lot of playtesting to get right, and the controls were surprisingly intuitive. This can't have been easy, and I have nothing but respect for the devs on this part. And while this is the worst playstyle in the game, and I absolutely understand why some people don't like it, I don't know, I just love it. It's not the most engaging thing in the world, you kinda can just mash buttons and win, but I still have fun doing it. Like, it'll never not be fun seeing these animals destroying everything around them, only for V to come in and drive his cane into an enemy, all while reciting poetry. Nightmare only makes this better, as Griffin and Shadow attack on their own, so you only need to control Griffin. Nightmare is firing lasers all around, Griffin is spewing lightning all over the place, and Shadow is impaling demons all around. It's a great spectacle, and it'll always keep me entertained. I don't know, maybe I'm just easy to please, but it's how I feel. Although, to be fair, I haven't played this game in Dante Must Die mode yet, so maybe some of those variables change how I feel. But for now, V is an absolute blast to play as, literally and figuratively. Something interesting is that pretty much all items from previous games have been removed. Vital Stars, Holy Waters, and Devil Stars are gone, so you can't replenish your health or DT mid-mission unless you find green or white orbs. Blue orb fragments still exist, and you can still buy a few blue orbs in the shop. Purple orb fragments were added in this game, and, just like blue orbs, you can also purchase a few from the shop. And since some items were removed, the revival system has been revamped. In previous games, if you die, you use a gold orb and come back while sacrificing your rank. In DMC5, you can still use gold orbs, but you can also use red orbs. When you use red orbs, there are 3 options to purchase, each getting more expensive, but each refilling more vitality and devil trigger in return. But if you die again, the red orb price will increase. To be perfectly honest, I don't really care for this change. Items being gone doesn't bother me too much because green orbs and white orbs are plentiful, and I don't really revive in any of these games unless my patience has run out and I really want to be done with something. Overall, I can live with either system. To get back to the story, V finds the Devil Sword Sparda in Mission 9, and he also finds a comatose Dante. Side note, but why does Dante look like the coolest guy to ever live, even when in a coma? It's not fair. To wake up Dante, V has the bright idea to stab Dante in the head. Immediately after, we flash back 2 months into the past, where V first hires Dante to take down Urizen. If you can't tell by now, Urizen is just Virgil. Virgil somehow survived his defeat in DMC1, and he's kinda just been messing around for the past 16 years. He's pretty weak, but he tracked down Yamato to Nero, explaining why he tore off the Devilbringer. He needed Yamato back. And now Yamato can cut through space and open portals, which was something first introduced in the reboot, funnily enough. After he acquired Yamato, Virgil stabbed himself with the sword to separate his heart from his body, creating his heartless Urizen and his nobody, V. Urizen doesn't remember anything from his time as Virgil, only that he wants power, and he recognizes Dante and their childhood catchphrase, jackpot. V, meanwhile, remembers everything and realizes just how wrong and horrible all of his actions have been, while also carrying the trauma of his time as Nello Angelo, which you can see clearly when you fight the Proto-Angelos and the Scudo-Angelo in Mission 7. V knows he doesn't have the power to stop Urizen, even with his demon familiars, so he goes to hire the one man who could do it. Dante gets the job from Morrison, who was first in the animated series, although they changed his race in this game for some reason. I don't really care though, and he's a good bit more entertaining than he was in the anime. Patty also appears as a cameo in this game as today is her 18th birthday.
Devil May Cry.
Dante, do you have any idea how many times I've tried to call? Like a zillion. Oh my god, tonight's my birthday party. Yeah, I'm turning 18. Not a little kid.
A part of me kinda wishes Dante never took this job and just went to her party. It'd have been nice to see her again after 10 years. Mission 10 is Dante's first mission, taking place 24 hours before the prologue, and after that, Mission 11 is Dante's first mission in the present day. Dante's gameplay is basically identical to his gameplay in DMC4. You've got his 4 signature styles, and you swap them with the D-pad. But while his gameplay had a high skill ceiling, there wasn't much to do with his moves because of his low amount of weapons and small number of missions back in DMC4. Whereas in DMC3, Dante had a lot of weapons at his disposal, but you couldn't use all of them at once. DMC5 fixes this issue and is the best of both worlds. In Mission 10, you start with Ebony and Ivory, the Coyote A, Rebellion, and Balrog. Balrog is this game's hand-to-hand option, and is probably the best in the series. Previous weapons like Ifrit or Beowulf had punches and kicks as regular parts of the combo, but Balrog is basically 2 weapons in one. One weapon that punches and one that kicks. You can keep on punching enemies to ignite the gauntlet's flames and release explosive attacks, and then you switch to kick mode, which has its own moveset. This gives you a lot of options and combo potential, and it's great. At the end of the prologue, you see Rebellion get shattered, so you use the Sparda in Mission 11 and 12. Its moveset is identical to Rebellion's though, so it's just a cosmetic change. In Mission 11, you can find Kalina Ann buried through the debris, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't use this as much as I should have. I don't know if I made this clear in any videos, but just in case, I'm not good at any of these games, so I don't experiment with weapons as much as I should, doubly so for firearms. Anyway, Missions 11 and 12 are so great because, unlike DMC4, the devs are making levels that are designed around Dante and his moveset, so you can make the most out of this guy. The difficulty scaling is also pretty great, as Dante is a much more complex character than Nero or V, so he's introduced halfway in, and his levels reflect this. Mission 12 is like a maze you have to traverse through, and you get to experiment with all of Dante's moves. But the best part of Dante having his own stages would be that he gets his own original bosses. In DMC4, Dante just fought the same bosses that Nero did, and while it worked overall, those bosses were meant to be fought as Nero, and it was easy to tell. But in this game, a boss like Cavalier Angel is meant to be fought by Dante, and it's great. She shoots lightning all over the screen, perfect to either be dodged or blocked, and she fights from both afar and up close, and you've got the tools to counterattack in a few ways. Cavalier Angel is one of the best DMC bosses and easily one of my favorites. It's no contest. After this fight, you save Trish and unlock Cavalier, a motorcycle that can split into 2 chainsaws. Every attack with Cavalier feels like it has a lot of weight. It feels really satisfying and it absolutely tears through health bars. This weapon also got DLC, as Cavalier R is basically the same weapon, but with an extra Swordmaster ability. It was DLC for the original game and it's included in Special Edition by default. The only weird thing is you can't use it in Bloody Palace for some reason, but thankfully mods can help you get around that. At the end of Mission 12, Dante finds his childhood home, and realizes that if Yamato could separate heart from body, what would Rebellion do? So he stabs himself with Rebellion, and it fuses with the Devil Sword Sparta to unlock Dante's Sin Devil Trigger, and also to create the Devil Sword Dante. The Devil Sword Dante is the best weapon in this game, as it's a combination of Rebellion and Sparta, with a few extra perks that neither sword had. It has summon swords like Virgil, you could do aerial combos without Swordmaster along with some new combos, and the Sin Devil Trigger is absolutely incredible because you're unstoppable as you fire torrents of projectiles or just summon black holes. Dante also has a new move that's basically his version of Judgment Cut End, called Judgment. Fun fact, it's the same move that Sparta was doing in DMC1's opening. The SDT is so powerful that you're even able to break through Urizen's shield and deal some damage to the dude. To fill the SDT gauge, you have to hold down the Devil Trigger button and expend the DT gauge to fill the STT gauge, which is some pretty great risk versus reward. You'll have the Sin Devil Trigger, but you won't have any regular Devil Trigger, and you can't manually revert from SDT, nor does it refill your health. And for even more risk and reward, Royal Guard has been changed so that if you don't perfectly block something, it'll consume your DT instead of your health. In Mission 13, Dante and Nico meet for the first time, and she creates a cowboy hat for Dante to wear. It expends red orbs to attack, but when an enemy is wearing the hat and you hit them, you gain red orbs. It's a fine weapon, but the best part is this cutscene.
I'll take that.
If you played all of these games, Dante doing something like this should be no surprise to you. And honestly, I can't really decide as to which cutscene I like more, Lucifer's or Faust's. They tie for me. In Mission 16, Dante gets King Cerberus, which is a lot like the original Cerberus weapon but with some extra functions. Of course, it keeps many of the moves the original had, but when you charge the weapon, it turns from an icy nunchaku to an electric rod, and when you use the Swordmaster moves, it turns to a fire bow staff. So they basically took a pretty cool weapon from a previous game, expanded its moveset and utility by a lot, and made one of the best weapons out of it. And fun fact, chronologically, Cerberus is the first devil arm that Dante gets, and King Cerberus is the last devil arm that Dante gets. And finally, in Mission 18, Dante gets the Kalina Ant 2. After Lady lost the first one, she had Nico make a replica, and Dante can use both rocket launches together. And Nico also secretly added a coupling mechanism, so you can attach the two launchers together and deal some wicked damage. To move away from gameplay, DMC5 is also the game with the best humor. The best DMC plots can blend the serious stuff with the wacky stuff, and this game does it perfectly. I have no clue what they did in the recording booth, but something about the delivery just makes every quippy line that much better.
Over the years, I've been stabbed and jabbed by a number of things. But who would have ever guessed?
Have you lost your mind? There's a demon to destroy! Kill yourself later! I'll help!
I can quote entire scenes from this game, simply because the characters are so believable, thanks in no small part to the performances.
Same crap, different day. So, tell me,
Tell you what,
how does it feel to be rescuing the guy that killed your father?
hey, I'm glad we're getting personal. Well, he abandoned my mother and I and left us for dead. So I feel nothing.
Well, he's not exactly going up for Father of the Year award now, is he?
His research wasn't half bad. Came in handy. Mildly thankful for that.
They have to do that in here. It already smells like ass.
That's you.
It's also natural as jokes fit in perfectly. You probably can't tell the difference between the jokes and the serious stuff. One bad thing about this game, however, is how it handles the ladies. They don't really do much. At the beginning of the game, this is understandable. Lady and Trish have turned into service for Mundus. Lady is in Artemis and Trish is in Cavalier Angelo. But once the two are rescued, they do nothing. Lady quite literally does nothing other than this one incredible shot, and Trish dumps a bit of exposition in Mission 13. They also speak with Nero in Mission 18, but that's it. I can understand the two not being playable, as the game already has 4 characters, but to make up for that, they should have had more relevance to the story. The two also got nerfed in terms of design, so DMC4 is automatically the better game. In Mission 13, all 3 hunters join together, and you can pick which one you go through the mission with. Afterward, our hunters separate, and you go through Mission 14 as V, 15 and 20 as Nero, and 16 through 19 as Dante. I bring this up because Mission 14 is a boss rush, and this is a boss rush I actually like. You fight Goliath, Artemis, and Cavalier Angelo again, but as a V this time, and without some of your familiars. Because of this, these fights feel fresh, and I've got no problem with them. The gimmick is that you have to unlock your familiars again, one by one. The best path is to pick Shadow first, who'll be dealing most of your damage, then Griffin for extra support, and then Nightmare since you can only use him in DT. You should also probably save Cavalier Angelo for last since she's the hardest. Before I get to the end game, I want to touch on something this game gets wrong that every prior game, even DMC2, got right. Architecture. Every previous DMC game, besides maybe Reboot May Cry, has had some sort of Victorian or Gothic place for us to spend the game in. DMC1 had Malay Island, DMC2 had Vita Marley, DMC3 had the Temendi Gru, and DMC4 had Fortuna. DMC5 doesn't really have this. The Qliphoth is very demonic, and from my limited knowledge of the series, looks like it came out of a Resident Evil game. It's just not the most appealing thing to look at compared to the castle on Malay Island, for instance. There is also the more contemporary setting of Redgrave City, modeled after London, and that definitely looks nice, but again, it's nowhere near something like Vita Marley. In Mission 17, Dante and Urizen have their final fight outside of their childhood home, and the two fight. This is also a pretty great fight, as Urizen uses all his attacks from the previous 4 fights, but a lot faster and with some new attacks sprinkled in. But once you defeat him, V, on the brink of death, comes in to deliver the final blow. This was the plan all along, and this restores Virgil.
What is this? Virgil.
Virgil makes his way to the top of the Qliphoth, and Nero's left with some questions, then Dante delivers the big answer.
You don't get it.
Let me guess. I'm dead weight? Well, you can
That's
shove
not
it
it,
up.
Nero.
What is it then?
He's your father!
What?
I can only imagine how this felt if you were someone who's been following the series forever. Virgil being Nero's father was something that's pretty obvious in hindsight, and the DMC4 novel even confirmed it, but finally seeing and hearing it must have felt great. I also like how, in the prologue, Dante tells Nero he's dead weight in hopes of pissing him off and quitting the mission, so that he doesn't have to tell him that the big bad is his dad. Kinda sweet in a way. Little did Dante know that this was a spark of fire in Nero and get him to do the very thing he did not want him to do. In Mission 18, before you fight Virgil, you've got to go through all the familiars first. As Griffin explains, the familiars are all versions of Mundus's generals as Virgil remembers them, as physical manifestations of Virgil's trauma as Nello Angelo. Now they're here for another shot at killing Dante. These fights are just fine, there's nothing special to them. However, it is some pretty cool fan service, and each fight plays a remix of a DMC1 song. Once Virgil reaches the top of the Qliphoth, we hear him ponder something pretty interesting. This game brings Virgil's character full circle and makes it clear what the franchise has been about up to this point. In Mission 10, we get a flashback to when Mundus's army attacked Redgrave City, and how Eva saved Dante and died trying to find Virgil. This left Virgil alone as he summoned the Yamato for the first time and defeated the demonic hordes by himself. In Mission 17, Dante explains to Urizen that Eva never abandoned him, leaving Virgil to ponder this.
That day, if our positions were switched, would our fates be different? Would I have your life, and you mine?
V, who was much more in touch with his emotions than Virgil or Urizen, divulges that all he ever wanted was to feel safe and loved, and that only he could deliver that, explaining his iconic line that, without strength, you cannot protect anything. He cast aside his humanity to never feel vulnerable again, only to be defeated by Dante anyway. His arrogance led to his defeat at the hands of Mundus and his enslavement by him, only to be defeated by Dante again 9 years later. His resentment of Dante makes sense, since according to Virgil, he's the one who abandoned everything, yet Dante is still the one who comes out on top. Dante is the man who defeated Mundus, who defeated Argosax, who is the man who continues to defeat demonic overlord after demonic overlord. His is the name that's set in fear in hell. Whereas Virgil is a guy who's only suffered defeat after defeat. But Dante has always been the more powerful one because he never abandoned anything. Virgil abandoned his humanity and embraced his demonic side, but Dante accepted both and became unstoppable. He was the one who found the humanity in those who couldn't find it in themselves. He was the one who didn't hesitate to destroy those who put the world in danger, and that is true strength. And all of this is a setup for what's probably my favorite boss fight ever.
Hey, Virgil! Your portal opening days are over. Give me the Yamato.
If you want it, then you'll have to take it. But you already knew that.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
How many times have we fought?
Hard to say. It's the only memory I have of us since we were kids. Time to finish this, Virgil. Once and for all.
Mission 19 is so perfect because it's just two perfectly equal to guys at their most powerful fighting to the death. There is no goal other than decimating your foe, who just so happens to be as powerful as you are. Virgil is fast and ferocious, and all of your skills are put to the test. There are many ways to fight Virgil, and none is more valid than the other. I go for Royal Guarding all of his attacks to build up the style gauge, and fill up the DT gauge while also attacking after he's done. And when Virgil uses his SDT, I usually intro my own SDT. I think my only issue with the fight would be this specific line.
Cut off your own son's arms for this? My son means nothing.
I don't remember where I heard this, but I'm pretty sure that this was a mistranslation. In the Japanese version, Virgil thinks that Dante is just taunting him and saying that it won't work, instead of saying that his son means nothing to him. In the end, Dante tells Virgil that Nero is his son, and Virgil doesn't deny it. Speaking of which, Nero is in a bit of crisis after finding the family he never knew he had. V told Nero that Dante and Virgil are destined to fight, but Nero doesn't see it that way. According to him, if you have family, then you fight like hell to protect it. He calls Kyrie, and Nero's confidence is restored. And this is one of my favorite cutscenes ever.
I couldn't protect Credo. To this day, I hate myself for not having enough strength. But this time is different. I swear! I'm not letting you die!
Nero regrows an arm, unlocks his devil trigger, and intervenes in this feud with his own 2 hands. And once this happens, I think I'm safe in saying that Nero is the most powerful character in the entirety of Devil May Cry. Or at least, he will be. Right now, Nero is doing something that no other character in the series has done before. Earlier, I mentioned how Dante was always the one who won, because he used both his humanity and demonic side to strengthen himself, while Virgil cast aside his humanity. And I guess you could say that Nero is doing the same thing, but in a better way. In the beginning of DMC3, Dante was Virgil's opposite, casting aside his demonic side and embracing his humanity. He then unlocks his demonic power in Mission 8, but it's not like the way it was here. Dante unlocked his demonic power just to survive and defeat Virgil, whereas Nero is using his humanity to unlock and strengthen his demonic side. Dante started DMC3 just wanting to take down Virgil. He unlocks his devil trigger in Mission 8, and his fight for humanity begins in Mission 16. When Dante and Virgil first awaken to their demonic powers, it's just to survive and enable their own selfish goals. People like Sparta, Trish, and Lucia already had their demonic powers before they woke up to justice. Nero's DT, meanwhile, is fueled by his humanity, his heroic desire to save his father and uncle. Unlike Dante, this isn't demonic power serving a noble goal. It's the 2 sides of a person acting more intimately than ever before. And I think that's the explanation as to why Mission 19 ends in a draw, while Mission 20 ends with Nero's victory. To get back to the actual mission, it's a final fight between Nero and Virgil, and the first time you use your devil trigger, the game capitalizes on the moment beautifully. Once you activate your DT, the music swaps to Silver Bullet, a remix of Devil Trigger, which is absolutely incredible. It's perfectly climactic and emotional for this part of the game. The battle ends with Nero winning as Dante and Virgil travel up to the underworld and sever the Qliphoth roots to stop a demon takeover. The game ends on a pretty great note, as while Nero, Lady, Trish, and Nico stay to protect the human world, Dante and Virgil stay in the demon world to fight to their heart's content. And so, that ends Devil May Cry 5. DMC5, at least for me, is kinda long. It took me about 13 hours just to get through the main campaign, but the game doesn't end there. Of course, I still need to talk about Special Edition, but you also unlock more difficulties like Son of Sparta and Dante Must Die. Bloody Palace is also unlocked, and it's just like it was back in DMC4, only better because you can practice floors you've already beaten. Nero and Dante also get some post-game additions to their movesets. Nero regrew his arm and unlocked his DT, so in gameplay, you can use his Devil Trigger, and you get the Devil Bringer back in addition to the Devil Breakers. Nero's basically a new character at this point, and he's even more fun to play as. Dante's additions aren't as great, but still cool, as you unlock a regular full custom, which lets you swap between Rebellion, Sparta, and Dante in the same weapon wheel. It's pretty great. And even though you're spamming the same weapon attacks, it keeps the style rank high since it's a different weapon. But just because we're done with the main campaign doesn't mean we're done with the video. First, I want to mention this game's gallery. It's nothing too special, but I enjoy reading up on the character and enemy bios, all written by Nico. We've also got some extras to look at, like Morrison's letters, which recanonize the DMC1 novel as they mention Bobby Seller and Nell Goldstein. There are also some documents written by people we don't know, like one about the Qliphoth, one that's a newspaper article from the time Ivan died, the diary of an old man who gave Virgil the poetry book he still has, and someone researching the legend of Sparta and talking about how he had 3 swords. One blade bore his own name, the second blade was named to embody retaliation, the final blade was named to embody the god of death. The first, of course, is the Devil Sword Sparta, the second is Rebellion, and the third is Yamato, with the name referring to the Japanese name for the Hindu and Buddhist judge of the afterlife, Yama. Second, there's the game's novel and manga. Devil May Cry 5 Before the Nightmare is a prequel novel that takes place about a year before the events of the main game. The important bits are that Nico and Nero first meet as the former is researching the Order. Nico is the daughter of Agnes and granddaughter of Nell Goldstein. Dante travels to Vita Marley to take down Balrog. V meets with Morrison to offer Dante a job. V travels to a hospital to recruit Nero, and the novel ends where the game's Mission 1 starts. There's also a manga, Devil May Cry 5 Visions of V. The novel starts 2 days before the game's prologue, and it ends with Virgil's restoration in Mission 17. To highlight the important parts, V is born and Griffin saves him from Urizen, and the two create a contract, as shown by the tattoos on V. Shadow makes a pact with V, and the three of them kill Phantom. Nightmare drags V into a literal nightmare, and ends with Nightmare as V's final familiar. We see V hire Dante to take down Urizen, saying that the demon's name is Virgil, nearly sending Dante to Devil Trigger. V hires Nero to take down Urizen, even though he's an arm down. The manga then adapts the game's prologue. We see a flashback to when Virgil first gets the poetry book that V has, and we see how Virgil dealt with the demons that attacked him when he was a kid, giving us this absolutely incredible piece of art. The manga then adapts pretty much all of V's missions of the game. As Urizen and V merge, we see V approach a young Virgil, as he explains how he doesn't need to run from his past and nightmares, and instead face them head on. Overall, the novel is fine, with some neat fan service, but the manga was excellent, and I love it. Tomio Ogata's artwork is always a pleasure to look at, and while V was a character that I really liked originally, seeing all his struggles and horrors turned him into my favorite Devil May Cry character. It's interesting to mention that the manga does contradict the game in a few areas. For one, V doesn't spawn in with his tattoos, he instead gets them from creating contracts with the familiars. V also wasn't attacked by Gilgamesh after defeating Nidhogg, he just went straight to the fight against the Elder Garian Knight. And Dante never met Nico, and he never got Dr. Faust. So, finally, I think it's time to talk about DMC5 Special Edition. And to get them out of the way, let's talk about the microtransactions. My opinion of them has changed slightly from when I talked about them last. Overall, I kinda don't care. It's only a few dollars, and at the end of the day, it's a single player game, and I don't think you should be listening to a 15-year-old on how to spend your money. But still, I don't think these microtransactions should exist at all. You should earn red orbs through playing the game, not buying them. And a re-release that's meant to be the definitive edition shouldn't ever release with any DLC. I thought that the point was that it's the complete package, no DLC needed. Beyond that, Special Edition brings back Turbo Mode, which ups the game speed up to 120%. This is basically a must-have at this point, so it's nice to have it. Legendary Dark Knight mode also returns, which is basically Son of Sparta but the enemy count is tripled. The game also comes with ray tracing and a high frame rate mode. Something I want to mention is how the costumes in this game kinda suck. I mention this now because I believe they were added in Special Edition, but anyway, the costumes are pretty bad. Hell, there aren't even costumes in the normal sense, just recolors. Nero is in Order of the Sword colors, and I don't really care for it. Dante is in Reboot Dante colors, and it looks horrible, just like in DMC4. V's is actually kinda cool, as it's based on Gilliver, and the green looks cool. Virgil's, it's just his DMC3 colors. Trish turns into Gloria, and I think it looks horrible. Lady is wearing Trish's colors, and it looks fine. And Nico's costume isn't based on anything, and it's just the most 5 out of 10 thing ever. So yeah, the costumes are pretty underwhelming. However, even if the recolors were peak, they're still just recolors. Maybe it would have taken a lot of time and money to put some new clothes on the characters because of how the character models were made, like scanning real people. But I'd pay the $5 DLC for these costumes. However, besides this one small blemish, the most important part of DMC5 SC is that Virgil is a playable character. Just as in DMC3 SC and DMC4 SC, it's just the main campaign but with Virgil instead, so I'm not disappointed by this anymore. Not only because I've become accustomed to it by this point, but because this is the most fun Virgil yet. In DMC3, playing as him was kinda underwhelming since it was just his boss moveset. DMC4 made him into the best DMC playstyle thus far, but the campaign was so much more repetitive as him. DMC5 doesn't have a repetitive campaign, but it also makes Virgil his best yet. There are a few small changes, like changing Trick Down to no longer be exclusive to Devil Trigger, or changing Kick 13 to be a back-to-forward motion. And then you have the bigger changes, like giving Virgil his own Sin Devil Trigger, and repurposing his Devil Trigger gauge to the gauge for his doppelganger. All 3 of his weapons also have super moves now, not just Yamato. Of course, there's still Judgment Cut End, but now Beowulf has Hell on Earth, and Mirage Edge has Deep Stinger. Oh yeah, Virgil doesn't have Force Edge anymore, instead he has Mirage Edge, which is basically the same. Virgil in this game is the easiest character to play as, simply because no matter what you do, every enemy in your path will just be a black mark on the floor. He's the most powerful character and the best DMC playstyle yet, unless DMC 6 can somehow surpass this. However, the best part of his gameplay is the music. Virgil has never had his own battle theme before. In DMC 3, he got an extra verse in Divine Hate, and he just played the regular battle themes in DMC 4. But for DMC 5, Casey Edwards decided to go absolutely nuclear with this song, and along with vocals by Victor Borba, they made Bury the Light. A nearly 10-minute song all about Virgil, his character, his arc, his motivation, absolutely everything about him, while still being one of the greatest songs to smack demons to. This might sound kinda stupid, but I have absolute confidence in saying this is one of the best songs created for a video game, and my favorite song of all time. Honestly, I don't think I even needed to say this. If you've heard the song, there's a 100% chance you agree with pretty much everything I've said. And if you haven't heard the song yet, please turn off this video and go listen to it. Just make sure to come back to this video afterwards. However, Virgil does get something unique at the end of his campaign. It took 14 years, but we finally have a Virgil versus Dante fight. Not a reskinned Virgil fight, not a reused fight that was meant for another character. No, it's a fight against a legendary Devil Hunter as his older brother. He uses all of his weapons, all of his styles, even his Sin Devil trigger, and it's a hard and a fair fight. However, after all this, I still have something to whine about. We don't get a Nero fight. Mission 19 is a fight against Dante, and so is Mission 20. You see, instead of Nero coming in, we get another harder fight against Dante. I understand that it probably would have taken a lot of effort and time to turn Nero into a boss, right after they just did that for Dante, especially for a $5 DLC, but it still would have been nice. I don't know, maybe a Nero fight would just be really unfair if he was able to grab you with his Devil Bringer out of nowhere, then stop you in place with Ragtime, then start hitting you with Punchline. But I think that'd be kind of fun in its own way. But whatever, we don't have it, and it's not like I'm gonna lose sleep over it. After all this, I think the best way to describe DMC5 is how I did in the first sentence. It's my favorite game of all time. There are a lot of games out in the world. There are a good number of games that I like. But DMC5 stands out amongst the crowd because of how close it is to literal perfection. It's fun to play any mission as any character. The post-game has a lot of content. The game's production value is high. The soundtrack is one of the best I've heard. The game looks absolutely beautiful. And the story tugs at my heart like no other. Sure, it sucks that the girls didn't get to do much, the game's locations aren't too appealing, the special edition never got a PC release, and the ult costumes suck. But those are all pretty minor at the end of the day, and I'm not really thinking about it when I play the game. It's a great game, and it came at a pretty good time for me. One more thing to grab hold of amongst the uncertainty of entering high school. But as for the future Devil May Cry, that's kind of an interesting one. DMC5 released about 7 years ago, which is a little crazy because Reboot May Cry was 6 years old when DMC5 released. And after DMC5, we got an anime that released last year, which absolutely pumped the sales of DMC5, as it crossed 10 million copies not too long ago. And DMC5 was one of the best-selling Capcom games ever, and DMC is one of the best-selling Capcom series ever. So it's safe to say we'll get another game at some point, but we have no clue when. Who knows, maybe we'll get a DMC1 remake. Maybe Nero will be the sole main character of DMC6. Regardless of what happens, you can bet I'll be there to play it and review it. And no matter what comes of DMC6, DMC5 will always be a great game, and one of my favorites. A game so great, even a Devil May Cry.